join the CSR communication series which I run on my blog. I know we worked closely together in the past, and it's obviously someone whom I feel that you will be able to add immense value to this conversation. That's the reason why I selected you and chose you. So before we get started, it'd be great if you could quickly introduce yourself to our viewers.
Sure. It's good to see you after a long time, Anisu, and thanks for being so generous. I hope I live up to your expectations. So I'm Roshni Venkatesh. I've been in corporate citizenship over 10 years or 15 years now, both having experience in India as well as now I'm based out of Singapore, and my corporate citizenship remit is global in nature. So it's been quite interesting over the last 15 years to look at skilling, look at employability across the world, and to see what are the common kind of threads and what's unique, what's distinct, and yeah, in this kind of COVID situation, I don't call it post-COVID because I feel like we're going through it. So it's
Right.
in COVID, and
Right.
I feel like there is so much more. I would say the like market failures are just kind of exposing fault lines even more now. So yeah, it's a good time to have this job and do this role.
Fantastic. Yeah, I know, and especially now, and because of the fact that you are doing this global role, you have access to all the cultural nuances, and also like in India, because of the 2% CSR Act, there's a different dimension to CSR altogether. So it's really good to have your perspective. So let me begin by asking you, how do how does your organization define what CSR sustainability is, and what is the importance they put on CSR communications?
Yeah. Now that's a great question because I think if you asked me 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would say that we were still in this silo of there is community impact and then there is sustainability in terms of my office premises. How are they? Are they okay or not? And
Right.
am I going to do something in the eco environment space? And maybe that looks a little bit different. And then the way I would work with my clients, yeah, I need to make the technology, robust, but it does even until 2 years ago it was all talked about in different bits, and of course as reporting has also kind of become more sophisticated. So
Right.
if you've signed up to the UN Global Compact or if you've signed up to the Global Reporting Initiative, then you got to do regular communications on progress, etc.
Yeah.
But I feel like all of these external communication efforts is one thing, but then the internal motivation to just interlock all that together.
Mm.
And that's why I mean, so for example, this whole thing about profit with purpose, if you want
Mm.
to talk about that, or you want to talk about responsible business,
Right.
uh, I think it's been delightful to just somewhere turn the corner and
Mm.
just coming together a bit more genuinely, a bit more
Mm.
authentically, I
Mm.
feel. And
Mm.
I think communications has played a great role because
Mm.
they are now almost. I would say signaling, they are the main way to
Right.
signal how we
Yeah.
are changing and how our
Yeah.
processes, how our people, the way we think about our people,
Right.
as well as how our people think about the community outside and about
Mm.
each other. So it's in the last couple of years, it's almost like almost like we were gearing up to this point in
Mm.
life where I'm going to only see my team members virtually. I will
Mm.
only see another person virtually for some time.
Yeah.
Hopefully the vaccine comes soon, whatever, right? But
Mm.
and then how do you establish that sense of commonality and the sense
Mm.
of a purpose that is bigger than us getting by?
Got it.
Long story short, it's just kind of really become quite different. And when I
Mm.
look at my organization and the way comms has really changed over a period of time,
Mm. Mm.
it's just been really exciting.
Fantastic. And so, how does CSR get communicated, and what are some of the methods or the channels or the resources used?
So like I said, right? So we've got
Sorry, there's a plane flying overhead. Just hold on.
so I'm so happy there's a plane flying.
Yeah, I think that's positive news.
Right now in Singapore, if I hear a plane fly, I feel like, oh, then I realize it's cargo and it's not people. So Anyway, so yeah, I mean, in terms of just communication channels, we've got the usual communication channels. So, for example, internally, the communications are kind of cascaded through teams. We've got external communications, like I just mentioned, certain mandatory communications we've got. And then we've got things like, very detailed, I would say, client RFP FAQs, which are also a medium of communication because we work on those responses very clear, very closely with with our comms people to comms team and leadership to actually define that. Um, what I what I think is quite interesting is how we are looking at things like innovation challenges
Right.
and sort of it is a campaign but and it will put you on that platform, but it is for doing a particular thing, like say working with a partner. Say for example, we work with one of the sort of biggest organizations globally who has who works with entrepreneurs
Right.
and putting together an innovation challenge where maybe say their members as well as say our employees are getting engaged and sort of creating something together maybe. So those sorts of platforms have now kind of also come up as the alternative and supplementing vehicles, I think, to for doing the communications. But I think overall, I think when today we speak to our clients or when we speak to anybody outside, I find more and more people themselves being evangelizing,
Right.
how the pride that our people take to say that we're making a meaningful difference and we're actually changing the way we are working in this space, or being very conscious about how we work,
Right.
fly less, all of that stuff.
Right. Fantastic. And is there a dedicated team? And what kind of skills? Because the question more is what kind of skills are valued by the organization? What kind of skills do CSR practitioners need to have?
Yeah, well, so I think a lot of I would say project management, time management, program managements, and the ability to look at strategy, of course, and define it to your senior most stakeholders, because they are really, they're really on top of it. They want to be able to talk in the best way possible about the
Right.
things that are being done. And this is not just about sort of, let's put a spin on it, but it's really about, okay, how do I really communicate effectively? What am I doing? And that is at your CEO level. So C-suite wants to know. So you need to cater to that. You need to have,
Right.
the ability to talk at that level. But then you also need to be able to just roll up your sleeves and get something done. So if you need a campaign to be executed,
Right.
you can't be just sitting back and saying, "Oh, somebody else is
Yeah.
going to do it." Um,
Yeah.
and CSR teams are very small even now. So even with
Right.
your 2%, the 2% law, I feel like
Yeah.
more CSR teams now are in place than ever before. Like 10 years ago, when I used to be in India and I used to be practicing
Yeah.
CSR, then you know how it has been. One and a half people. I mean,
Yeah.
the other half is my split personality, half of my split. Yeah. So anyway, so I mean, but that's changed a lot, and I think that's great. But there are still countries where there is one person managing the show, and they are in charge of fundraising. They're in charge of talking to their partners, talking about charitable giving, talking about volunteering engagement. They're doing all of that and managing a budget, which is probably quite shoestring. Um, so yeah, you need to have that breadth and that span. You should be able to span all of that stuff. Um, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I think in many ways that's what really got me excited when I started doing this, because I was like, wow, there's there's so many of my skills could be used. So I think that's really interesting actually.
Fantastic. And you mentioned a few parts of, the volunteering, the innovation. So where, in terms of budget, approximately, again, you don't need to mention the budget, but, what categories of work does this get allocated to? Is it mostly in volunteering? Is it mostly on funding? Is it mostly on employee giving? So what kind of initiatives do
Yeah.
you do?
So there are two aspects to this budget. One is to cover the costs of the team doing the work, and one is the cost. I mean, what is the amount of money you have or the resources that you have to give outside into the community or into initiatives. So I think uh, when we talk about the 2%, the 2% is entirely to be outside. You cannot use that to fund your, headcount or whatever, right? So that is separate. But I think the employee giving, for example, it is employee giving. So what happens is that these the budgets for communications are very small. They're not very big for communications per se, because any of these, if whether you take volunteering or whether you take the donation giving campaigns, things, or if you look at emergency and you talk about those campaigns, um, those are they take up a very minuscule part of a CSR of the overall communications budget. But I think what is interesting is that in earlier times you would have this really tiny, minuscule budget for internal comms around CSR, and you would equally have like 25% of one person's time, say 2 times a year. Okay, that's all you had. But now I think that's changed. So there is a person who will look at CSR comms in the most strategic way, even if your budget is small. And I think that has really become very valuable. So, I mean, it depends on who's putting that strategy together with you, and are you being given the time of day to be able to do this?
Got it. Got it.
So,
Fantastic. Yeah, that makes sense. Is there any trend that you spot in CSR, and again related to communications per se? And over the years, you must have seen this domain evolve. So, what are the trend that you spot?
um, well, from a communications perspective, I think I love the idea of anybody being able to make a fundraiser happen. So when
Yeah.
you actually look outside, you have Keto, you have Impact Guru, you have all of these, and I find it amazing because just in this last few months, I've had people like you and me, putting their might behind whatever it is, starting a campaign, and being able to actually get people to join in and to raise funds
Right.
and to be able to give back. So I think that's great. Now I'm talking, of course, externally, but when we then talk about internally within an organization, for example, what we have now is a volunteering portal where you can go and you can put in your own what do you call it? Something you want to do,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
And it's and you could be clocking hours quite legitimately. It doesn't have to be company led. It
Right.
could be something that you have identified yourself. You are organizing, you're self-organizing into like teams and groups and doing this. And I
Fantastic.
think this is kind of this is the sort of thing that I think internal comms needs to support, because now it's no longer about internal comms saying, okay, this is the agenda, this is how we'll talk about it, this is what it is. Rather than saying that, go to the people, I guess, who you're looking to engage and say that,
Right.
so how do you want to bubble up some of
Yeah.
this so we can mirror it in our strategy and
Fantastic.
we can build on it.
Fantastic. So that's more like collaborating and co-creating the strategy with employees itself, which is fantastic. That's a great idea, a great trend that you mentioned. If you could reflect on any of your campaigns, one campaign that you could describe where there was a business or a social challenge, and how did
Yeah.
you go about it? What was the outcome? What was the result from that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think about 10 years ago, we didn't have a systematic employee giving program in our organization, and I I I needed to kind of put that in place, and that's what I initiated. And any direct marketing campaign, if 10% of the people respond to you, that's like kind of successful, right? More
Right.
than 10%, then you're hitting the ball out of the park. Anyway, so. But that was a very interesting experience because it was from scratch. It was about payroll giving. It's about managing the logistics of all of that. Put all of those elements put together, and to, of course, look at, okay, which organizations would you vet? And then coming to internal comms, so how can you make somebody excited about giving up their cup of coffee or their cup of tea and saying that, okay, let me, like it costs you as little as 5 rupees or 10 rupees. And those kinds of campaigns, and our internal comms folks, and you helped me so much in that, to kind of really bring that whole thing to life, to make it relevant to the people who are going to be seeing it. So I think, I mean, it was an entirely internal campaign. So it was about, harnessing employees. And I was really blown off my feet saying that, okay, we've got 10%, probably 15% of the population of our India headcount at that point signed up. Uh, and it was across our location. So we ran it also quite virtually. Uh, it was amazing to just see that, and then it's grown strength to strength. I have to tell you, it's just,
Okay.
now it's just like huge. It's big. It's it just runs by itself. So we put it in place. But a second example, and this is something that I have not personally done, but I've seen how this happen, and it's quite different from how I did this like 10 years ago. And that's our social innovator kind of
Wow.
thing, where we think that we have a lot of people in the organization who can innovate and who want to be social innovators. So how can you be a social innovator? So what does it mean? So can we bring some of our consulting work to bear to address social challenges?
Got it.
And this started about a year ago with a lot of communication around it, whether it
Right.
was in forums where CMDs were talking or the CEO was talking, or where our corporate citizenship director was talking,
Right.
or even our technology lead was leadership was talking about it. And then
Right.
now we've got teams who coalesce around specific ideas. So, for example, somebody had a thing about saying, what if we could make PPE suits? What if we could use 3D printing to make masks?
Right.
And this is the kind of thing that is happening in the organization, which is really exciting. And this is again in that very organic way.
Right.
Everyone being a steward of it, everyone being a champion. But then comms, our comms team then takes all of that and then puts it out there, whether it's about fireside chat with somebody about talking about this, and making sure that the brand recall
Right.
for our company is about saying that these are the kinds of people and this is the sort of societal value.
Yeah.
So again, profit with purpose, or
Right.
purpose more than profit, or whatever that
Got it.
combination is.
Yeah. 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 Fantastic. I mean, great examples, and I'm sure that that's really going to work extremely well in terms of
Yeah.
motivating people and
Yeah.
engaging them. So, what's your advice for CSR practitioners to communicate better? What advice would you give them? How can they be more effective?
Well, firstly, I think they need to take it as a responsibility,
Mm,
because I feel like a lot of people say that, listen, I do the work that I do and I'm so happy about it. And, I'm
mm,
very happy. I've, impacted the lives of, 1.5 million people in the world. When you want to do comms, I mean, get somebody else to do it. I don't
mm,
think that's how it works, because
yeah,
you don't make magic out of that. Like if I am not able to, as a CSR practitioner, engage and excite my communications counterpart in an organization, whatever
yeah,
that organization is, it's not it's not going to fly,
mm,
um, it just will make it less than what it is, and it
yeah,
could be so much more. And I think it's impossible to also avoid that, because
mm,
your CEO, your C-suite, they're going to turn around and say, sorry, how are you communicating about this? Because
yeah,
we want to attract all those people to
yeah,
us, because we want people to work for us, because we want them to feel like a sense of kinship.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I see that whatever it is that a company might do or report, uh,
Mm,
that reporting itself, the act of reporting out, is
mm,
itself so locked in with our
got it.
comms people.
Mm,
Um, in fact, for us now, it's like a dedicated person who is looking at our corporate citizenship reporting, or
mm,
like throughout the year,
Yeah.
planning for it, and then finally it's that culmination of, it gets produced.
Yeah.
But the teaming that happens between corporate
Yeah.
citizenship and the comms and marketing team is stupendous, actually.
Mm. Interesting. And what advice do you have for people who want to get into this kind of role of CSR, and especially now in India with this 2%, it has opened up a lot of opportunities. What advice do you have for them?
Well, I think, try and have the appetite to team and collaborate more within the ecosystem, because
Mm.
everybody has got the 2% funds.
Yeah.
Everyone is wanting to give money away or whatever, and how it goes. The more money you have, the harder it
Mm.
gets to give it away.
That's
So
true.
that's the
Yeah.
other thing.
Yeah.
So, you need, and there's only so many new ideas in the world. So I think
Mm.
anybody who wants to get into a role,
Mm.
yes, you want to do that, but you also need to have the appetite, I think, to just
Mm.
go out and be lateral, connect with other people in your in your space.
Mm.
Back in the day when I started doing this, I think there were probably like five people in India who probably were dedicated corporate citizenship
Correct.
people. And
Yeah.
it was a very lonely place, because then you're
Yeah.
like just talking to yourself about
Mm.
stuff.
Yeah.
uh, but I think now there is so much more to do, and I think, yes, this whole thing of saying that, is your company really, is the are the people that you want to work for really committed to do something?
Mm.
Because if if it's not that much of a, I mean, if it's at variance with how you feel about it,
Mm. Mm.
then you might want to just kind of hold back and look for something else which might be less big and jazzy, but maybe more genuinely connected to what you feel. But
Correct.
in this world, I mean, what are we going to do? I mean, there are only so many jobs in the world, right? So,
Yeah.
well, I mean, there's also that healthy dose of skepticism of saying that, okay, you know what, a job is a job. But,
Mm.
you know, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so one is you're saying it needs to align with your passion and your values, and also, of course, you need to be committed to doing this because it really helps add value to the world. So that's the other
And
way to look at it.
and does it help you to advance your own knowledge
Mm.
about development sector issues and about
Mm.
what is really needed to move that needle of equality or inclusivity? Uh,
Mm.
what are those? How do you put your lens across the patch to look at some of these things, right?
Got it. Got it.
Uh,
Got it. Great.
yeah.
And as we wrap up, the last question is, how can organizations think more deeply about communicating CSR? I mean, what should they be doing better or differently? Because sometimes CSR is really not top of mind, especially now in these scenarios where they're trying to just survive. So, what's your advice? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think again it's about. I mean, to your point, this is the time that people are just trying to survive.
Hmm.
But I think even in that time, even when you're doing that, are you laying off, or are you laying off, giving your people some money? How are you being a responsible business, even if you're in like the doldrums?
Hmm.
How are you being holding your head up high?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you treating the people that you're letting go well? Are you
Hmm.
giving them amount of, notice period? Are you giving them the money, that they can get by? Or are you just using loopholes to fire them without having to pay them?
Hmm.
How are you looking at the migrant labor? How are
Hmm.
you? I mean, there are some very well-off, small and medium enterprises. Not all
Hmm.
of them are little organizations who are feeling the squeeze, but some
Hmm.
of the even medium-sized ones who are doing quite okay.
Hmm.
I mean, it's reprehensible the way they are treating these people who are their contract labor. So
Hmm.
I feel like there is even more of an opportunity to demonstrate, not by giving money away in
Hmm.
charity, but
Hmm.
just making sure that your charity is beginning at home
Correct.
and to the
Fantastic.
people who depend on you.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I feel like it's no longer about CSR. It's no. I mean, looking outside, because now you really have to take care of, the people who come, who are affected by the downturn and who are
Hmm.
your employees. So, for example, can you do something? Can you team up and can you sort of you don't need somebody, but say your client needs that person, then can that person go and work there? I mean,
Mm.
the sort of solutions you want to think about, it's
Yeah,
not always related to the amount of money you can give or
yeah,
not give. It's
yeah,
about, your ingenuity about how
yeah.
you think about some of the stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, great points and fantastic. Really nice to have you on this chat, and this has been brilliant. I really love the insights that you shared. So thank you so much for doing this. I'm sure it'll be valued by all our viewers.
Well, I hope so. Listen, thanks so much. It's been great. Firstly, at least by like this, we got to see each other and talk to each other, but hopefully we'll keep in touch more.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Roshni.
Just
Appreciate it.
take care. Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.